This one's new, I suspect.
There's a part here. They, on the new version, I see road strike, but there's a part bad and part good next to it. Right there.
No, this is the same.
So it needs to.
It's just you can read it better. You can read the script better. This one you couldn't.
After you, sir.
Or no, this is the fire.
Big fancy agenda. I think it was a very fancy script.
Yeah, I didn't know I had to do any of it today.
Because
So
of being
this is
retired.
actually a public meeting?
Everything's a public meeting.
Stop. And there's minutes too? Scott, is there minutes too?
For government.
Scott, we have to take minutes too. Minutes?
We think minutes, oh yeah.
Is he here to do that?
No, he's not there.
That's the point.
Well,
I
I'll
thought,
take the, I'll
I
get,
thought only
I'll
Todd was.
make a motion.
He might be here, I don't know.
He's not coming, he's, speaking of the.
Oh.
Sorry, the music was so loud. Nobody was here when I initially said it.
So you're gonna recommend somebody take minutes, or you're gonna do them?
I always take minutes, we want some, the secretary call the roll and all that.
Yeah, I think we have to, right?
Yeah, Commissioner Shred has done it before. Want to be Mr. Weber tonight?
Sure.
There you go, sir.
All right. All right, you got time there, sir? I'm gonna say it's 6:04. Is that all right? As it is now 6:04 or '05, I would like to call the special meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to discuss zoning code public draft number 2 dated November 2025 to order with a roll call vote. In Commissioner Weber's absence, Commissioner Straka will be the scribe tonight.
Is there a motion?
A motion to open the meeting, please.
Sure, I'll move.
Second.
Commissioner Evans. Commissioner Miller.
Aye.
Commissioner Severin.
Present.
Commissioner Swoboda, absent. Strika, aye. Weber, absent. Grund,
Aye.
motion carries.
Welcome all. Arista, who we've met before, and staff, and everybody else. Off we go. Apparently, we have a zoning commissioner oath that we're gonna start with.
So we'll go for each one as this is part of a new commission. So just repeat after me, and I'll go for each commissioner. So it shouldn't take us too long. All right.
Can we do a unison, or it's?
No, you have to do each one. I, Charles Grund,
I, Charles Grund,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
I'll support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of
the office of Zoning Commission Member
the office of Zoning Commission Member
of the Village of
of
Brookfield,
the Village of Brookfield,
Illinois, according to the best of my abilities.
Illinois, according to the best of my abilities.
Wonderful. Can you sign it
Got it.
at the top?
Thanks.
And then I'll collect them when we're.
Yeah, keep going.
I, Ryan Evans,
I, Ryan Evans,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
Constitution of the State of Illinois,
that I will faithfully discharge the duties of
faithfully discharge the duties of
the office of Zoning Commission Member
the office of Zoning Commission Member
of the Village of Brookfield, Illinois,
of the Village of Brookfield, Illinois,
according to the best of my
according
ability.
to the best of my abilities.
I, Karen Ann Miller,
I, Karen Ann Miller,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of Zoning Commission Member
that I will faithfully discharge the office of Zoning Commission Member
of the Village of Brookfield, Illinois,
of the Village of Brookfield, Illinois,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Sign. I, Steve Sabrin,
I, Steve Sabrin,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Zoning Commission Member
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Planning and Zoning Commission Officer
of the Village of Brookfield,
of the Village of Brookfield,
Illinois, according to the best of my ability.
Illinois, according to the best of my ability.
Sign. Let's do this.
I, Paul Christopher Straker, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Zoning Commission Member of the Village of Brookfield, Illinois, according to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
Thanks, Noah. I see a couple of members of what I assume might be the public out there, so this portion of the meeting, if you have any comments not directly related to tonight's agenda, you feel free to offer those comments now. If not, we will move along. Is this a public hearing? So I have to, workshops, so I have to open up a public hearing? No. Okay, perfect. So, with that said, new business, workshop on the public draft 2.0 of the zoning code. This is the second time that we've met, first time we met in concert with the village board. So this is the second go-around for us and the second go-around for Camiros, who has prepared this. So I'll turn the floor over to staff.
And we're gonna turn it over to Arista to start.
Oh, okay. Is that turning over? Okay. All right. I'm turned over. Okay. Thank you very much for having me here tonight. I do appreciate it.
Arista, I don't mean to interrupt, sorry. I will say that I talked to staff, and we'll do a hard stop at 8 o'clock unless I hear otherwise. So, I mean, if we're running close to finishing up a section and it's 8:05 or 8:10, we'll complete that section and we'll move on, if that's the way this goes. Perfect, sorry, go right ahead.
No problem. So thank you all for having me here tonight. This is a much shorter presentation than the one that you saw earlier on when we met together with the village board as well. Really what I'm gonna do is just highlight what the contents of each section are, some of the changes that you're seeing in Public Draft 2.0, which were indicated in red line. Just as a refresher, the zoning code update, why we're here. We're looking to implement adopted plans and policies, creating a much more user-friendly structure, making things more predictable and consistent, again, integrating elements of design that we've seen kind of started through things like the station area, but carrying them through into other sections, looking at the neighborhood character, trying to require fewer special approvals, and transparency in terms of how development approvals happen. So, I'm gonna try to time this correctly this time. So as you're looking at it, the code structure, obviously it still stays the same as you saw earlier. The introductory sections, Articles 1 and 2, kind of the heart of the beast, Articles 3 through 9, which are the different districts, as well as the use permissions, kind of everything that moves away from the principal use and the principal structure, in Articles 10 through 14, everything from accessory structures to signs. And then finally, the administration of the code. How do the applications work, nonconformities, and enforcement? So, as I said, Article 1, that's the title, purpose, and intent, kind of introduces the code and how it transitions from the old one to the new one, or in the case of future amendments. You'll see there's just a minor revision to the purpose statement. Article 2 contains all your definitions and measurement methodologies. We've had some clarifications within here, so you'll see some of the definitions have been refined a little bit. We've added definitions for facade, pennant, plan development, traditional lot, through lot, clarified a couple of the proposed measurements, and added an additional measurement of lot width for curved lots. Article 3 just really summarizes the different districts, introduces a zoning map. There are no changes from the Public Draft 1.0. And I know it's a little bit out of order, but it just kind of fit on this slide. Article 19, enforcement, again, no changes to that article, just carried over from Draft 1.0. In the residential districts, again, as you saw and we talked about earlier, it's been renamed to an R residential district structure, modern zoning nomenclature. And now we have 4 distinct types of zoning districts. So your R1 and your R2, these are your single family districts. You see those equivalences there. A and A1 is R1, A2 and A3 is R2. Minor changes in the lot sizes, that's a distinction between these two. And then you have kind of the mix of dwelling types. So R3, you see everything from single family all the way up to small scale multifamily dwellings. And then R4 is the higher density townhouse and multifamily development district. As you also are aware, we talked about it a bit last time, is the use of a traditional lot. This is to address those existing 3,000 square foot lots that you have throughout the village, to find a way to make them conforming, so that, you know, they exist, houses are on them, people are going to build on them. So a whole bunch of rules for those, basically memorializing them, making them conforming, but again, not creating any new ones. And anything below that 3,000 square foot threshold, that would be considered a non-conforming lot. So this is really just for things that would exist as of the date the code goes into effect. You cannot make any new ones. The commercial districts refined into 3 specific types. The C1 neighborhood district, kind of a community hub, diverse range of retail, service, and eateries in this area. Kind of moving up a little bit more into the C2, areas like 31st Street, where you have a corridor that's got a dynamic mix of commercial uses. And then finally, C3 Ogden, really one of the gateways into Brookfield. Couple of updates that you've seen here. If you looked at the red line, we clarified that mixed use is allowed in the purpose statement, so it became more explicit about that. There is the creation of the C265 subdistrict. This is for the Congress Station area. As you kind of can remember, we had to switch some of those station areas into regular commercial. Understanding how that area may develop with some of the height permissions that have been taken away with the switch from station area to C2, we had to create the sub-district. And you'll see that on the map. It kind of makes sense as you look on the map. And then updated one of the design standards for consistent materials and treatments on all facades. Typically, we had it facing a street. We've added one also facing the OS district, OS being the open space district or parks. The station area districts, as you know, we had a lot of conversations about these. You have a lot of them. They have building types. They're very complex for areas that aren't that big. So we found a way to simplify them and really boil them down into the new downtown districts, which is really the kind of center area of town. So you'll see we created a downtown core, downtown transition. As you see in the table there at the bottom, how these equate out. You see downtown core, SA 1, 3, and 5. And then as we looked at it, we saw that SA 4B, again, got a lot of these districts, was more appropriate as a downtown transition. So that's one of the changes that you've seen in there that moved. And that's really something you see more so on the map than any real text change in the document. A couple of things added to the downtown districts. Shouldn't say station area districts there, I just caught that. Minimum lot area for townhouses as well as minimum lot widths. And then looking at things like a minimum building height for non-residential, mixed-use multifamily. And again, some front build to percentages, corner side build to percentages, because as you know, you have those build to zones there. Again, making them applicable to non-residential and multifamily, rather than kind of exempting out townhouse. So really, this was kind of taking townhouse out. The industrial districts, the I-1 district has been transitioned into more of an industrial mixed use. It allows for some commercial in there, which is kind of the nature of these existing areas, and a renaming of the I-2 into the IG General Industrial District. No changes have been proposed to the standards in place. In terms of special purpose and overlay, there's 3 of them. The OS was the consolidation of 2 of your existing open space districts. One of the updates you see here was the elimination of a minimum lot size, because these are for parks. We don't want to be too restrictive there. A new district for institutional. These are kind of larger institutional campuses, such as kind of where we're sitting right now. And then we've just moved over the sexually oriented businesses, or the SOB, overlay district over from the village code here. Again, no changes there. I mean, you may see some minor corrections that have happened, but we are not kind of tackling any changes to that district. I'm not consistent? Okay. I tried. I really tried. So Article 9 is uses. As you know, we've switched to a global use matrix, tailored the types of uses allowed to each district, went with a more of a generic use approach and definitions for all of those. Certain ones of these uses have standards in place to control their impacts, and we've addressed all the types, principal, temporary, and accessory uses. So again, looking at this table, you see here, you can either look at your district and see what uses are allowed, or look across when you want to have a certain use and see what kind of uses are permitted. A couple of changes here. You'll mainly see these kind of throughout the document. We eliminated the temporary use of real estate project sales office from the OS and institutional districts, kind of illogical to allow them because that's not really going to happen. Clarified that bed and breakfast can't have an illuminated sign. Added some stacking spaces for car wash. Standardized separation between uses at 1,200 feet, which was, we had 1,000, we had 1,200. We just decided that it was easier to kind of make it one standard. Added some screening standards for outdoor vehicle dealership or rental, in particular their outdoor storage areas, and again, hard surfacing for vehicle repair. We had a lot of talk about this. This is one of the bigger changes, ADUs above a detached garage. You'll see that language has been kind of refined and made so that it can be allowed, basically talking about where you would put a detached garage now, allowances for having an ADU in that place. Revise some of the standards for temporary on-site storage containers to bring them a bit closer to what they are now. And then some just simple clarifications in some of the different use definitions. The general development standards, this is kind of all the other things that happen on a lot, everything from exterior lighting to mechanical equipment to refuse and recycling containers. Few kind of minor updates here. Again, one of the things we did talk about for a while was the site triangle. We created a much more standard, simpler, not massive site triangle that's commonly used throughout in different communities. Allowed for fences within the utility easements, and clarified that ground-mounted mechanical equipment is prohibited in the front and corner side yard. In terms of the accessory structures, again, this is kind of all the different things that can happen on a lot. Some of these things, basically, we haven't made any changes to the ones that we had kind of called out specifically, but added a little bit of information here. For chicken coops, we added a cross-reference to the existing village code. Again, that garages, detached garages, a cross-reference back to the ADU permissions because that became a big issue to make sure these would be allowed. And in terms of wind turbines, private wind turbines on property, we removed the permission to have them be freestanding. Just kind of, they would be sort of out of character with what's here in Brookfield. Parking. So we all know we're gonna have a big debate on parking, maybe not tonight, but there's some clarifications regarding off-street parking and loading, because even if we have or don't have parking, we have to design it properly. Some clarifications in the or institutional districts where it can locate, allowing for curbing in a lot to have cuts for drainage, just being explicit on that. Clarify that you can't take access to a parking structure from an alley, so being very clear on that. Some controls, some are new, the parking of commercial vehicles on non-residential lots. Similar to what we have for residential, we've added some for non-residential, so limited to passenger size. Anything above that would not be allowed as part of outdoor storage. And then for recreational vehicles, added a minimum of 30 days between storage periods, so it cannot just be continuous. And only allowed temporary storage tents in the rear yard 5 feet from a lot line. In this draft, we've continued, and I'm not gonna go through this, all the words that you've seen, this is the same slide from last time, but we have talked about a complete elimination of minimum parking requirements and basically allowing the market and the site and all these different things to decide how much parking can be provided on a site. There's a number of benefits to this, there's a number of communities that are heading this way. So this is something, again, big policy issue up for debate. Landscape, again, kind of three things that we always have landscape for: the parking lot perimeter, the interior, and then buffer yards. Some minor updates here. There was a purpose statement added. We added a species diversity requirement. We revised the minimum planting sizes to make them requirements and enhanced those requirements as well. Some minor revisions, clarifications to perimeter parking lot and interior parking lot plantings, and it eliminated the seating walking path permission from the buffer yard standards. In terms of signs, again, we took chapter 42 from the current village code, integrated it into the zoning code, and did some updates. Again, things very important, content neutrality. So as we look through these, same set of signs that you saw last time, a few of the clarifications that we'd like to bring up. For banners, allowed for mounting on fences and outdoor activity enclosures. For cultural historical sites that want a sign, we've moved it from a 5-foot setback to a 1-foot setback to make it easier for folks to read. Non-commercial messages, clarified how window-mounted signs would be counted. Parking lot circulation signs, again, another thing, brought that down from 5 feet to 3 feet. Again, this is kind of enter, exit, drive-through, those types of signs. For canopy signs, we clarified that freestanding can apply to things like a drive-in restaurant, a thing like a Sonic, when you think about that. Electronic message sign, our intent was only to allow 1 per lot. We made clear that it is 1 per lot. For monument signs, we brought it down in the C3 to 40 square feet in maximum area, 8 feet in maximum height to match all the other districts, so kind of bringing that sign height down. Projecting signs made it clear that they can encroach in the right-of-way, but that they can't swing, regardless if they're in the right-of-way or not. They cannot be swinging. And wall signs clarified that those apply to ground floor tenants. In terms of the articles related to administration, these are all really the same. It's the kind of standard set of applications that you always see. There may be just some minor clarifications in there for just alignments. Similarly, no changes within the nonconformities. These lay out the different categories, the 5 types: the use, the structure, the lot, the sign, the site element. Again, with that permission for a wall extension for single family and 2-family, a way to kind of extend the life of a house. Then also what you may have seen is the zoning map that's been released as part of Public Draft 2.0. And there's also a memo that goes along with it that explains how we got there. This chart comes from that memorandum, and it basically just shows how current districts have been equivalent to a new district. So that's what you see, the current district, and then its equivalents in the new district. The only one that doesn't have anything that matches up with it is the new institutional district. It being institutional, doesn't have an equivalent. So what you see as you look at the map, we released both the proposed map and areas of change. The main changes you see here that are substantive are the governmental and educational facilities within the village were zoned to the institutional district. Again, those station areas that are not the downtown, Brookfield Station has been zoned the C1 district. Congress Station, as I talked about, the C265 district, allowing for a little bit more height, otherwise identical to the C2. And then a couple of alignments with existing conditions along 31st Street and Grand Avenue. You have a village entry sign that's just kind of sitting there out there, so we wanted to make that open space. And then across the street from that village entry sign, the bottom of the parcels you'll see there, it's a very small parcel, was zoned R3. Well, we proposed the zoning of R3 to align with the current residential use. So you could see here, probably not very well on this, but hopefully you all have printouts. This is the proposed zoning map. It shows where all these districts lie. And then the second map has got the dotted lines showing where more substantive changes have occurred, where things haven't been equivalenced out. So that's what the dotted line is. It's just to draw your attention to things that are new. And so with that, like I said, it's shorter, but really that is what I wanted to kind of bring to everyone's attention, and happy to take any questions and comments, however you'd like to proceed on this code. Thank you.
Do we want to do article by article? Do we want to get, I mean, how, I guess a general question is, I know you got a lot of comments, both from our commission and from village board members. I saw some of them incorporated, some of them not. I mean, what's the intention there?
So myself and staff sat down and went through every single comment that we received. And looked at those based on kind of, how the code works on a day-to-day basis and just kind of how it's structured, which of those changes should be made, which we would just like to bring back. And if you want to bring them up for discussion again, that would be fine. There is the other memo, correct? So there is that other memo that highlights the ones that didn't have any changes or just weren't a comment, like, I like this, we took those out. So that other memorandum you have that's pretty long, I think it's like 17 pages, are the comments that we didn't make any changes in relation to, and we're happy to discuss any of those comments.
Okay. How do we think it's best to proceed? Article by article,
I'm happy to do it that way, unless.
and we'll get as far as we can tonight? All right. I got through about, more than half, so I can start. I don't think I had any comments on Article 2.
If we could talk about Article 1, and everybody has all the comments, but 1.4a, I still am concerned about, it's this table 1.1, where it talks about how the transition will happen, and it essentially under special, if it's a current special use, and it becomes a permitted use in that district, this table means, it says that it won't be subject to the conditions anymore. And that's concerning to me because, as I said in my comments, those are specific, those conditions are specific. They were heavily vetted in several public hearings for any special use. They are specific to those sites, and they've been deemed necessary by, this body and the village board to public health, safety, and welfare. And I think that they should stay in force. I think that I've seen in other codes that those have been held. So unless it's a legal reason to say that those conditions aren't necessary anymore, they're so very specific to the site and the conditions around the site and the reasons for approval of those special uses that I would be concerned seeing them go away. Arista, do you have any comments on the?
Yeah,
reason
it
for that?
really comes down to kind of a matter of equity. you've decided in this area that this use is appropriate as a permitted use. So somebody set up there and they were a special use and now they're permitted. Holding them to keep those special use standards isn't really fair to them, as the lot next door can just open up the business. They don't have to go through a special use thing. You've said that this use is appropriate as being a permitted use in this district. So holding them to these old standards when they were special, and then right next door, that same use can open without having to go through a special use process, without having any conditions. That's really what that's getting at. And that's why a lot of times when you see codes, some may retain them. I mean, I have seen a few that do that, but in general, the idea is we've decided this use is okay as a permitted use in this district, and let's be fair to everybody that's in the district.
I can see that, and I asked staff to provide where are the situations where this might be relevant. I mean, we haven't really heard back on that, if there are even situations where this would be relevant, but I think it still makes me concerned. Because, I mean, if you think about any of the special use properties where we have had to put conditions on them, would we want any of them to go away?
Just ask you for a what about, right? Like, maybe explain one of the areas that you're thinking about where we put conditions in place. It seems as if you've asked staff for that as well. But if we played like a what about with the Ogden site that got a special use, when you look at that one, what conditions would hold in that were special to, I think
Sure.
I'm only asking that so I can see more into the thought process.
Well, for one thing, they were required to close off that curb cut.
Yep.
And they would, if this, as written, they would no longer have been required to close off that curb cut. And I think that we, as a body, and the board as a body, collectively agreed that that was pretty necessary, because it's right next to Maple and, Prairie and Ogden, and it's a dangerous drive. I guess my point is, we have very specific reasons why those conditions were put in place.
So then the next step on that, if we like walked this one into place, and let's just keep with that exact special use condition so I can understand it better. That property changes hands and the person wants to open that back up, they would be allowed to do that by right of the code, or because the special use, the conditions that were placed on it would be eliminated by this? How would that work?
Without knowing the site specifically, if there was a curb cut that was closed off as a condition of the special use, so we switch it, it's permitted, it's no longer subject to that condition. However, the reopening of a curb cut is kind of something outside of zoning. They wouldn't just be able to do it because the special use permission is gone. They would have to get permission from the village to reopen a curb cut. That's not even a,
So in this case, that curb cut hasn't been accomplished yet. So it's a condition that they have yet to be held to. But we could probably come up with other special
Sure.
uses to
Well-
discuss in this hypothetical way.
And again, I guess that's to the point of it, is when and where does that change occur?
Right.
Like, if they had closed it off and a new business came along with the same use, and all of a sudden they said, well, I can open this up because my conditions are off. We looked at that site, we deemed it that way, and we put it in place. If they were able to remove that, I guess I would agree with you that it would go against some of the work that was done in public hearings to make that be put in place.
I mean, but to that point as well, if a different use that's permitted in that district comes in, it's not subject to that special use, because that use is gone. So it would just be, it was a restaurant and now it's retail. Retail's permitted, the special use is gone, so they can use the curb cut. There's nothing to stop that.
So any condition that was placed on any property under this could then be lifted as long as it conformed with the code on any condition that was placed in the past in perpetuity. So
Yes.
we've had, yeah, right, so yes, that,
I mean, it all depends on what it was, what it is, whether it was permitted or special, and then
Correct.
switching back. I mean,
but the
that's why
ones that would fall underneath this, that at one time, village boards and planning commissions felt were very important, could then be just eliminated by the code.
Yeah, if you switched it from the permission of that use from being special to permitted, the same use, let's say it's a restaurant and it was special, now it's permitted, those use standards you had would go away. But if it was a special use restaurant and it switches to retail, which is permitted, that's all gone, because the special use and any conditions are gone.
So I wonder,
So-
if- sorry,
Oh,
go ahead.
So using that same example, let's say that that same property, before they can eliminate that curb cut, they sell the property to someone else. So my understanding is special use goes with the property. So then would it just disappear and the new owner wouldn't have to eliminate the curb cut?
I mean, really, whoever would own it doesn't matter. At the time of the passage of the code, the special use standards would go away. Whether it's transferred, it's the same guy or the guy transfers it to somebody else, doesn't make a difference.
I guess the one thing that I would look back at in going with what Jennifer had brought up is these conditions are basically codified into an ordinance that is passed by the village board. So even though it may subsequently become a permitted use in the future, wouldn't it still be held to the standard because of it being codified in ordinance? I mean, because we're not nullifying the ordinance by making this a permitted use now. It seems as though that would still carry because it's part of its own ordinance that was passed by the village board.
Typically, it'd be part of the whole package. With this language in here, you're kind of assuming that those ordinances that are related to these zoning things are, going away where they're going away. So if they're special and it's now permitted, that they're part of this whole package that's going away. The ordinances that relate to a special use that's still a special use would remain in force. So generally, you could look at it that way.
So I wonder if an effective, more efficient maybe, way to look at this is to look at the use table and see if we are taking any special uses and making them permitted uses, and then deciding if there are any properties where that would be relevant. Rather than, and it may be, this may be moot if there are no situations like that. Unfortunately, I wasn't able, we didn't get the map until last week, and we weren't able to get that information, but maybe if we could look into this as we go along, it may be moot.
Does the village know offhand how many special uses are in effect?
Currently,
Mm-hmm.
I do not have that number.
I think that's something worth exploring, circling back on this.
All right. I'm happy to do that.
And I actually did tag this one, I missed it. I will say, I think one of the overall benefits of doing this kind of exercise, which staff, and I know Camaris agrees, is we're trying to put a document together that's more user-friendly for both the developers, the end users, the residents, just so somebody can pick up a document. I will say this table frankly doesn't do that. It's pretty complicated for us to disseminate. So, and I'm not just saying anything about the average resident of Brookfield, but if they look at this, they're gonna have trouble. And I don't know the solution, and I don't know if there's a solution, but it's kinda complicated. And I'm not sure even, some of our developers are smarter than others in this town, and some of them, so but I'll leave it at that. All right, we're done with that part so far? Anything else in Article 1?
At the bottom of page 1, 2, just where we were on, how does section C at the bottom of page 1, 2 relate to a traditional lot? We're talking about lots rendered non-conforming, but how does that relate to a traditional lot?
So really, that would relate back to the traditional lot regulations that are in Article 4, Section 4.3b, that talk about that they are no longer non-conforming, that they're not considered a non-conforming lot. A non-conforming lot under 3,000 square feet, so you got a 2,500 square foot lot out there, that would be what would be a non-conforming, it would still be subject to the non-conforming lot rules that are in place. And then nonconformities, I believe, does make reference, or at least if it doesn't, it will, make reference to, non-conform, or to traditional lots that they are not considered non-conforming lots.
Should there be any reference to maybe seeing the regulations of that particular section on traditional lots so that there is no confusion between them? Or do you find this adequate?
In Article 1, this is adequate. That would start, I mean, it would be a term that, you haven't seen, isn't really introduced until you get into residential. I think as you quote it, as you describe it in the residential districts, and we'll make sure that nonconforming lots in the nonconformity section references traditional lots, I think it covers all your bases.
On the top of page 1.3, under section D, can you provide an example of a site element?
Yeah, that would be things like exterior lighting. When you see the site elements kind of descriptions in the nonconforming section where we talk about if you're replacing nonconforming lighting, certain percentages when it has to come into conformance, that would be one thing. Landscape requirements. So it's essentially those things that are not, say, the principal structure or the accessory structure on the site, but other things. Landscape, parking lot design, exterior lighting, basically gets them out of the game of being considered a non-conforming structure because you just have no other place to put it.
Would amenity be a better word than element?
No, because it's a requirement. It's not really an amenity. It would be an exterior light, light post is a light post. I mean, I don't know if you could consider it an amenity, but it really just is an element there.
Anything else on section 1?
Not for me.
Article 2. No comment on 2?
Well, hang on.
Oh, hold on. Jennifer's looking.
I did see a comment from Commissioner Sabern that it would be, why do we have the definitions separated? We have some definitions here, we have some definitions under the use article. And for me, that made this reading confusing as well, because when we get to the dimensional standards tables, there are things listed in those like townhouse, multifamily, non-residential, two-family. There are things in there that have not yet been defined, so that made it confusing.
So the definitions are split into two sections. Article 2 is the general terms, kind of used throughout the code. And then Article 9, Article 9. And we did add a reference in the residential section where you can find dwelling types. It was intended to keep the use chapter as kind of one whole thing that has everything you need in there. There's a table. Every one of those terms in the table is defined in that section. any of those uses that have, standards that apply to them are all in there. So it's basically a self-contained unit of how uses are handled, which is kind of one of the biggest components of the code. We've made reference that use definitions are in Article 9. You know, we added in the reference in the residential to say dwelling types are look at definitions in Article 9. Nothing to say that you can't combine them all into one, but we found over time that keeping them separate helps really, you know, kind of shore up the use chapter to be very kind of clear about what is a use, here's how it's defined, here's how it's controlled if it has additional standards.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that.
I definitely, you know, in my experience, I've always seen these combined. I've never seen them separated like this before. And sometimes when you have a layman looking at this, if they don't see that definition in 2.3, then it could be something where they're like, oh, so this isn't allowed. But then you look at 9.6, oh, here's uses. You know, to me, definitions have always been, you know, in one location where you can find everything and not have to look in different locations for different definitions. I've always seen that standardized in my practices.
Does anyone else have an opinion on that?
I agree with Steve.
I mean, it is common. You'll see ordinances now that
I've
do
seen it
this,
both ways,
so,
but-
yeah.
Again, I think it's harder this way if we're trying to be, you know, making it easy reading.
You know,
So,
this isn't a document just for staff. This is a
Right.
document that is for the general public, developers, you know, commissioners, people who aren't looking at this on a daily basis and know where to go right away, but someone who may need to check something online, and if they don't see it in section 3 or 2.3, they're like, oh, must not be allowed.
Can you make a note in section 2.3 that the use definitions are in, what, 9.3?
Article 9, yeah, there already is one. It's right underneath 2.3 definition of general terms. Says with the exception of use definitions which are defined in Article 9. And then in the intro to Article, and then again, in the intro to Article 9, there is, you know, statements regarding that all the terms are defined in section 9.6. So it's kind of, as you're reading through the intro language there on the matrix, it's kind of pointing you to where those use definitions live.
I think in my experience, lay people, they'll go to this table first. They don't go look through 20 pages of definitions. They go to the zoning district table, and then this was LC, you know, those subsequent definitions that Arista mentioned. Different strokes for different folks.
If we keep it as is, I would suggest as, you know, it says under the heading of 2.3 definition of general terms, at the very end, say, which are defined in section 9.6.
Sure.
Can you tell me where some of these general abbreviations are listed or named throughout the document that aren't already within your measurement areas? I mean, these general abbreviations, I mean, many times you've got the abbreviation and then right next to the abbreviation, you got it spelled out in parentheses.
Yeah, it's really just meant to be something that's kind of easy for somebody to see if terms are being abbreviated. You know, SF pops up a lot. We don't really say square feet. You know, if something happens to get inserted and uses the abbreviation as SF-D for single-family detached, you've got it listed here. It doesn't, I don't think it causes any, it won't cause any conflicts into the future. It's just really intended to be in case we miss spelling something out or you add something later using abbreviations, you've got them listed for clarity.
bottom of page 2-16. impervious surface. I see that impervious surface is now, I think, pretty well defined. But I think I would caution staff to understand that people will still try and skirt that issue and argue that something is pervious. They think it is, and you won't think it is, and vice versa. So I just keep that in mind, because it says pervious surface is a ground surface that allows water to infiltrate into the soil rather than running off. And then in the next, item 3, it says gravel used for walkways are considered an impervious surface. But in 4, under a deck, it's considered a pervious surface. So I think people will try and use that to their advantage. I think gravel used for walkways, what about gravel used for driveways? Sounds like, to me, it's an impervious surface, so it wouldn't be allowed. I don't know if we need more clarity there or not, but I'm just bringing it up.
I'm glad you brought that up, and I forgot that was in this chapter. My concern about this is that when we install a permeable paver, we use gravel essentially in between those permeable pavers, and that is, they're in between concrete pieces. So it's the gravel that makes it permeable. And if we're installing a dry well, you install it as it's gravel underground, because that's what creates the voids. So saying here that a gravel walkway is not pervious, I have concern about.
But again, to the construction of that with the gravel that you do use, right? You are able to compact to the point where it becomes impervious. So there's a differentiation between what pipe is being used for
Absolutely.
that. So I would agree, I'd mark this, that it seems that there are multiple areas
Yep.
where it conflicts.
Yeah.
Or needs
Compacted
clarity
like
as to what.
C6.
Yeah,
And doesn't it depend on the size of the stone that's used in the
Right.
gravel too?
absolutely, and if there are fines, I mean, it could go either way, but I think that you're right, that I would appreciate a little more clarity on this.
And it probably comes up more as a bigger problem with, like, if somebody used as driveway or, you know, tried to
Parking
surround it
pad.
in that larger setting than even a walkway.
And it's true, a driveway would be very well compacted. It probably isn't gonna have any kind of underlayer that would be pervious. You're gonna have people driving on it all the time. It's not gonna be as pervious as something that's designed to be, but
Right.
you can design gravel walkways, or I would call them maybe decorative stone walkways, so that they are permeable.
Right.
So I'm uncomfortable with leaving it as just a cut and dry statement there, that those are impervious.
So a couple things, the driveway thing kind of is a moot issue. You don't allow gravel driveways. So, and the driveway standards say it's gotta be hard surface, so we don't have to worry about that. So it's really just the gravel walkways. At that point, you know, however you would like to count them, I mean, I will go with the, you know, whatever decision you all come to about, you know, if you wanna count them as impervious, just to keep it simple, or if you think that there's some leeway, we can look into that, but it's kinda gonna be, I don't know how precise we can get down to it within the zoning context. Or if we just don't care and don't wanna talk about walkways, gravel walkways at all, it's
Well,
the other
I
option.
think the problem is that Brookfield has spent a tremendous amount of time talking about permeable and impermeable surfaces over the last 10 years because of flooding, so this probably sits in our mind more than maybe others. And so, you know, each way that this is constructed, Jennifer's right. It can have direct runoff, or it can sink into the ground. So there are two ways to construct these, and I would say it probably then goes to the definitions of where is our building code? What would we allow as a permeable gravel area? And so, you know, deferring to staff and the expertise of what they allow in those settings seems to make sense to come into this.
Would it make sense to just eliminate number 3, since number 2 talks about the percentage of perviousness?
I will say in close to 30 years in the building division, I've never issued a permit for a gravel walkway. And it's not something, someone doesn't come in and say, I'm installing a gravel walkway. That might be a project someone does at home, you know, near a garden, something like that. And I think that would only come into play if I was doing a plan review, for example, and I noticed a large gravel area, and I called the person out, and I'd say, you know, what is that? Then I would refer to see, how does that count? But typically speaking, we don't have gravel walkways.
All right, so to that point, could we just eliminate it?
I think that it comes into play is, how do I as staff account for that when I'm in that situation, doing calculations? I have to make a stance one way or another. Does this count or does this not count? It's usually a very minor thing, so it's kind of inconsequential, but it gives me backing. You know. So however you guys would like to me to count it, zoning to count it. I feel like it's more of a garden issue, to be honest. You know, when I see an area over there and it's not really defined on a survey, and I call someone out and I look at an aerial image, it's difficult to see if it's concrete or gravel.
All right, I'm gonna play devil's advocate, because this has been used against me too. I appreciate your comments, Michelle, but you're probably not always gonna be here. So
No,
what about the
no, for
next
sure.
one?
But I'm
And
just
what if
saying
their
in 30
interpretation?
years, I haven't
Understood,
counted it.
but what if their interpretation is different? So I'm almost saying, I agree with you, Karen, just eliminate 3 and get it over with.
So just eliminate it and have staff use best
Yeah.
educated.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to do like an interpretation of 2, whether you think it's pervious or not pervious, and, or
We do that now.
pervious
We
or
do that
fully
generally
impervious,
speaking.
then.
And that's an engineering review too, and all of that, right?
It potentially, if it's over 300
Sure.
square feet, if that comes into play, then you have to do drywall counts. Typically on a single family, that's something else the staff would be able to review, but as it gets more detailed, people engineering in. I'm fine with eliminating that.
Okay.
Sounds good. Can we take a look at these lot depth calculations? I appreciate that we have diagrams now. I think, I'm thinking about the lots along Grand Boulevard, along Broadway, along even Plainfield and Ogden and throughout Hollywood, where we have, we may still have parallel side lot lines. The back lot lines can sometimes be very creative because the alleys that run back behind there. And so, if we're looking at this third diagram, I don't know what the solution is, but that one makes me very uncomfortable. Because what we're looking at on page 217, that third diagram, this individual, this property owner, probably has effectively a smaller lot than the person to the right of them, because there's that cut. But their lot depth is measured as deeper. And I don't know what the implications of that are, but that doesn't seem like the right way to measure that. And I don't know what is the right way, but I hope that we could re-examine that.
I mean, we can take a look at that. Really, the only place that lot depth comes into play is the rear yard. So that's the only calculation we have. So that's really what we're kind of looking at and trying to deal with here. I think when you're actually getting into something as odd as that lot is, and we added this just to show these various configurations, I mean, that's really where you're looking at something like a variance would be appropriate if something's way out of whack, because this is an odd-shaped lot. I think most of your lots will fall under the lot depth calculations that we've got here, you know, trying to show that this is how we would look at it. I mean, technically, that is how we would look at it. You know, midpoint of front, midpoint of back. to try to do any kind of mathematical calculation that tries to account for all these different things is gonna get real heavy really quick.
Okay, so what we're saying then is that the people along, with lots that are odd shapes because of our angled streets, then have to go for variances more often than not.
I mean, I don't know if that's true also, because the thing is, it may work. With, you know, we don't have very intensive rear yard requirements, so it may be that it's actually just kind of, you know, when you measure it, that it does work. I don't know, we would have to look more closely at some of these lots, but, you know, we're looking at a 15-foot rear lot, you know, rear yard.
Does it apply to setbacks and things like that? Have we changed those?
What do you mean?
Setbacks for if, for example, if this person on this lot wanted to put a garage on the alley in the back of their yard, in their rear yard. My lot is like this, weirder. I'm on Grant. And over the years, we have put a new garage in the backyard and on the alley, and throughout different planners, we've had different determinations as to what was allowed. And essentially, I want to make sure that that doesn't happen to anybody else. I want it to be clear, but I also don't want it to be unfair to those people on those lots, because there are a lot of them. It's not just me. So rather than this measurement that makes it longer than the real, longer than any front lot line even, any of their side lot lines. If the side lot lines are perpendicular to the front lot line, can we say that that lot depth shouldn't be longer than the longest side lot line? Would that be reasonable? So that it's not a diagonal across the property?
I would have to kind of take a look at this, go back and kind of look at it more. I think there might be another solution. I don't think that gets it entirely. There's some analysis that needs to happen here to
Okay.
kind of figure out. And we could just take a look at that
I'd appreciate that
again.
for the benefit of all my neighbors on those lots.
Bottom of page 2-19, item 3. And I might be ignorant here. Just talk about the townhouse lot width standards, and the example you give is the lot width requirement is 20 feet per dwelling unit. A 6-unit townhouse development would require 20 feet of lot width. So if it was 200 units, is it required to be 400 feet? Is this assuming one story?
Is it the footprint?
It's for the overall development, so we're not using lot width as a way to determine a minimum dwelling width.
Right.
We're just using it to determine the overall size of the lot that you need for the number. So if you had 20, the example is 20, so 20 times, yeah, I mean, it'd be, you need
400.
400 feet of lot width to do that.
No matter if it's 1, 2, or 3, or 4-story building?
Depending on what the district allows.
Right.
So, I mean, it's subject to everything else, the building coverage, impervious surface, all of those different elements all come into play. This is really just how you calculate this.
Okay.
Are townhouses allowed to be two units high, or is it?
I didn't get that far.
Well, townhome,
maybe
you
it's
have a
townhomes.
single store, or you have a single unit from first to
Bottom
third
to
floor
top,
or
sure.
fourth floor.
Right.
You could have 4 floors. I don't know if we'd ever want to have a townhome development where you've got 20 units that are connected from end to end, because that's like creating a whole wall of residences down basically a whole block if you're looking at 200 feet.
And I think that gets back to Arissa's point, is if it's allowed or not, or what's allowed in that particular district, so. I better understand it now.
Getting back to the section of 2.3 definitions in general, you know, my feeling has always been that the definitions are difficult to navigate when so many of them say defined in section 2.4. So, I mean, you're flipping back and forth between 2.4 and then you're looking through 2.4 where this might be identified. And in 2.4, it seems like it's a section where you're trying to provide illustrations for these definitions and terms. I mean, there are just so many terms in here that say defined in section 2.4, defined in section 2.4. And some of these definitions are 1, 2, or maybe 3 lines long, and it's like, how hard would it be to provide that definition right there where the term is provided for the reader? You know, to have to go to 2.4, and when I look at 2.4, a lot of those terms relate to the illustrations that are provided for the reader. You know, can we not provide the definitions where the terms are actually located within this section?
I agree
Well,
with
to
you
explain it,
previously, so.
2.4 is more than just definitions. It includes how you do the measurement, which goes outside of just defining the term. So like what counts as part of build to percentage, you know, things like allowing for a courtyard building is not definitional, it's kind of the rules of measurement. So what we found is that, you know, we can repeat them if it's easier, but you really do for these measurement things like how do I measure a block? How do I measure a block face? Is to send it all into this one section that has all of the different measurement methodologies together in one place. And again, they don't quite, 2.4 doesn't quite nicely fit here. There's some that may be very easy to put in as a definition, but others, like building height and things like that, get into things and exceptions to measurements and how you would measure and other flexibilities that aren't definitional, that they are part of how you would measure something.
I really think that we need to put the definitions where they're allowed. If there's a repetition, then it's repeated. Again, I think it's just an ease of use of this document rather than making it cumbersome for the reader.
Maybe if it's a simple definition, like you were saying, maybe 1, 2, or 3 lines, it could fit inserted into the appropriate section, but if it's a longer explanation, then maybe it would make things more cumbersome.
I do understand the point, though, that we want people to understand the whole situation. We want them to understand how they're supposed to be measuring these things. So it maybe a combined approach, but I'm not sure that we want to be redefining things, because then if the code changes in one spot and not in another, that gets complicated.
Again, that's where our simple word search could
Yeah.
clarify that if there's a change in the future.
So where are you finding it that I'm sorry, I didn't catch where it refers back, where it says refer back to 2.4.
Like if you look at building height, it says defined in section 2.4.
Yeah, look at page 2.6,
Thank you.
for instance, the bottom of the page.
Some of those are very,
Oh, I see.
you know,
Yeah.
definite terms where it doesn't need a lot of explanation. And to go along with these different types of lots, later on in the definition section, we've got a traditional lot, which is defined or listed as traditional lot. Maybe it should be listed as lot, comma, traditional. But, I mean, there's just so much of the defined in section 2.4, defined in section 2.4, and it's like, oh, jeez.
Personally, I can appreciate Arista's explanation of why that needs to be there because of all the measurements. But I will defer to the will of the group.
I mean, just to kind of point out on a couple of them, when you look at something like, say, yards and setbacks, the two terms are kind of intertwined in terms of how they relate to each other and how they're measured out. So that when you see those diagrams, you see how the setback and how the yard work together, and that's why they're both defined, and the measurements are kind of put together within here, which is, we found that section, kind of the way the use section is, it's useful. You can just point somebody, if you're measuring, 2.4, it's all in there, you know. That's how you do height. That's how you do building coverage. That's your exemptions from certain things. That's your impervious surface, gravel driveways, gravel walkways stuff is all sitting there, which is exceptions rather than definitional.
As a use, as an ease of use, when this is electronically published, does it typically then, if, and I'm the most lay person on this board, but I want to know what yard is, so I'm on, the electronic version, and it says defined in section 2.4, but it's hyperlinked, and I click there and it takes me to yard, or is that not typically how it's set up?
I will say that's how the city of Chicago code is.
It's, I don't know the current service that goes through, that Brookfield Code goes through, but it's fairly typical for anything like Muni Code or E-Code and all of those. Yeah, if there's a cross-reference, it's usually hyperlinked to where that is. It's a fairly typical component. It's pretty standard nowadays, actually.
So again, that from a usability, I mean, if the issue was partial usability and that was done, you would be able to easily, when I see, I don't know why it's in both places, but if I see yard there and I need to go to it, I'm probably accessing it that way, and now I have my definition of yard.
Well, can any assurance be offered that it would be set up that way electronically? Because I'd be more comfortable with that, because I know the city code, the city of Chicago pretty well, and that's how it's set up, that's how this code is set up, and it's not my friendliest. But at least when I go electronically, I click on it and it goes right to that definition.
Your current code is set up that way.
Okay,
Your current, and you are through Muni Code, so yes.
Thank
It's
you
got
for-
hyperlinks to the numbers that are cross-referenced, the sections that are cross-referenced.
so we can assume that the new code would be set up exactly the same way? Where you would,
Staff? I'm not part of it.
and
Thank you for
I'm not-
looking that up.
I'm looking at the whole table.
We'll verify, but with the Muni Code and the current code having the hyperlinks, I'll confirm with IT how that's done, but I believe that will be able to be done.
But I still recognize Steve's aversion, because some people in this town will still want a paper copy of the code.
Like
They
me.
They won't go into the computer to look at it. They may call you and say, can you print me a copy, and then we're back to where we were. So you may get some consternation at some point. But I think we should move on.
In regards to the definition for fence, open fence, there on page 2-5, there's a mention of 60%. Would you consider a picket fence an open fence? I mean, it seems as though like a picket fence in general is about 50-50 when it comes to openness. How are we going to make sure that, an open fence has more than 60%? I would consider a picket fence being an open fence, and that's only about 50%. Each, losing the term now, but for each vertical member, there is about an equal amount of open space next to it.
How is this currently done with the village? Because this, I don't believe this is a change.
Right.
So it's been reviewed before.
So does this come into play more for like development and stuff? Does this come into play? For example, I don't ask the residents if they're, I don't ask them the percentage.
Can you turn on the mic so
this is being, so as, I'm just checking where we talk about it. So, okay. So actually, this is actually a good catch. So we brought fences in from kind of wherever it lived before, to help define what is open and what is closed and where they're allowed. So basically, as you look through it, most yards, once you get out of, like, say, your interior side, your rear yard, open, solid, doesn't make a difference. Where we've got it is industrial districts and, in the front and corner side yards, allowing for the industrial districts to have a 75% open fence. I think what can be done, just to keeping with that, is that to change the definition of open fence to say, not to put a number in there, but basically, since that's the only place that it's referenced, and it would be specific to that, just to say that it's got a certain percentage of it that has regularly distributed openings as per the code, something along those lines, so that we don't have to talk about that it's 60%, considering what we've permitted within the industrial in the front and the corner side are 75% open. Does that make sense?
Does to me.
Okay.
Page 2.7 or 2-7 for plan development. I don't necessarily agree that this is an approval process. A plan development to me is an actual development, and we're really not calling out what I would feel would be items that we're really looking for in a plan development. You know, for me, it is a site that is of a sufficient size that it is almost its own entity, almost like its own subdivision. You know, when I consider what we did with the planned development at the triangular piece of property at, what is that, Brookfield and Fairview?
Fairview.
I mean, that's not a planned development to me. That was just a development that was looking for a lot of variances in order for this development to happen. And with a planned development, a community is also supposed to be looking for benefits to itself. You know, and we were trying to think, well, what could they do that would be of a benefit to the community? And it was like, well, we could put a bench out at the point. You know, we need to look for physical attributes that make this stand out, not as just something that is seen as a development that was approved because it got so many variances associated with it. I have a proposed plan development definition, and I would, you know, this is a review, a second review that I've done. This was not included in my first review, draft 1. This is a review of draft 2, where I've got a lot more pages. And if you bear with me, you know, what I had here was a plan development is a parcel of land or contiguous parcels of land of a size sufficient to create its own environment, controlled by a single landowner or group of landowners in common agreement as to control, to be developed as a single entity, the environment of which is compatible with adjacent parcels and the intent of the zoning district or districts in which it is located. The developer or developers may be granted relief from specific land use regulations and design standards and may be awarded certain premiums, maybe additional height or additional floor area ratios, in return for assurances of an overall quality of development, including any specific features which will be of exceptional benefit to the community as a whole. When I look at this definition that we have for planned development, I mean, again, they say it's an approval process. It's not an approval process. The approval process is your special use for a planned development. That is the approval process. it also mentions that it's subject to specific regulations. What regulations?
So, keep in mind that the plan development process has been changed. I've talked about that more in depth, here the last time around. It is now its own approval process. It's not a district, it's not a special use, it's got its own approval process and its own standards, many of which were kind of mentioned in the definition that we heard, talking about what its intent is. So, a lot of what is in the definition there is things like purpose and intent and how things operate. For definitional purposes, plan development, per the way it's written in this code, is just an approval process. I mean, that's what it is. When you get into the standards of the plan development process, which is way over in Article 17, so we're not there yet, what you can see is that plan development talks about kind of what its purpose, what its intent is, innovation, creativity. We don't have limitations on the size of these, but we have things that talk about what are the approval standards, what does it need to mean. There's also, as part of that process, the idea that there has to be enhanced design and amenities given back to the village of Brookfield in order for approval of that plan development. So the simplification of this definition as written here is really just kind of the, what is a plan development? It is an approval process. What happens during that approval process and all these additional things that are required, the compatibility, the enhancement, the benefits back to the village, that's all explained in the process part of it in more detail and talking about how you have to meet them.
All right, Steve's gonna get mad at me for saying this, but then could we in this definition say see section so-and-so?
Well, that's what I was going to
Yeah.
suggest, but I mean, I just think that this definition just does not have a lot of bite to it. I mean, yes, you can elaborate on it further, but this definition just doesn't.
Well, that's why I think if we refer to, because the elaboration is in section, what, 17, 16, 17, whatever it is?
17.5.
The one thing also to consider is you don't need to define plan development. You're not defining special use, you're not defining amendment, you're not defining variance. They're processes, and plan development is one of the processes that you have. So it's fairly typical not to have a plan development definition in the general definition section. And this was a request, we thought we could accommodate this without kind of disrupting the code. But I don't know that you need it at all, which is why it wasn't in here originally, because it's not like an amendment, it's not like a special use or defined in here either.
Well, then I'd be all for if you wanna leave it as in here and say plan development, see section so-and-so, that's fine.
I agree.
Sure.
Then there's no confusion.
So get rid of the definition, just make it C section.
No, leave plan development,
Oh, okay.
and then say see section so-and-so.
17.5.
So then nobody can say, well, what you say in the definition is redundant compared to what's in section 17.
Right.
So, then we're done.
Page 2.8 or 2-8. Principal building. Could we use a different word other than principal to describe a principal building?
Well, it is using principal use, so it's a non-accessory structure in which it's principal use, and then as you can see, principal use is defined. The term principal use is a term, right underneath it. So that's why we're saying principal use, because the building's a building, the principal use is the principal use.
Does it make it less confusing if principal use maybe is capitalized under principal buildings definition?
Well, again, when you go to define principal use, you say the main use. What my thought was, change principal to main. In
Under
which a main use of the lot on which it is located is conducted. And then when you go to principal use, you say the main use.
But then we don't have main use defined. So then we'd have to define main use and say principal use. You're
God.
gonna end up in a circle. Because it's not, I mean, principal use is the term within the code.
To me, principal use is a term of the code, it's referred down. I understand where you're coming from with it.
Yeah, I mean, because principal building and principal use are kind of two key terms used throughout the code, so.
And then further down for recreational vehicle, if we could just put at the very end, or somewhere within this definition, to see section 12.8B for storage of said vehicles. Because in section 12.8B, you actually talk about how the recreational vehicles should be stored. If it, I think it would be nice that within this definition, there would be a reference that would show them where to see how these vehicles should be stored.
I mean, yeah, we could do that. I mean, just to, kind of nothing else has that cross-reference to their standards. So this would kind of be the only one, but if recreational vehicle's an issue, I mean, that's fine.
Recreational vehicle is an issue. They're parked in the front of the house all the time.
Side yards, front yards, everywhere.
So if we could just make reference to section 12.8B within that definition, which then talks about the storage of said vehicles. In regards to page 2-9, and this goes to something that I've said before, but now it's biting me in the butt about it. If we could add to these different types of signs, if we could add sign, comma, billboard, and then just say, please refer to the definition of sign, comma, off-premise. Because in sign off-premise, at the very end, you say a permanent off-premise sign is also called a billboard.
So we added a definition of just billboard and used the word sign. Do we want to change that to be sign, comma, billboard, or include both of them?
No, I would just say sign, comma, billboard, and then just say, refer to or see sign off-premise.
Yeah, no, I'm saying we have a definition that just says, there's one that says billboard. Do we want one that just says billboard? And then one sign, comma, billboard. We added billboard that says see off-premise signs.
You did add one?
Yeah, page 2-2, it says billboard, see off-premise signs.
I think it is more clear this way.
It's like a circular.
Oh, I see it. I would say keep it in signs / comma billboard. Yeah, move it.
I agree, because you have all the
All
other
the other
types of
signs
signs.
are there. Yeah, absolutely.
And just a general question, have billboards ever been allowed in Brookfield?
We have one on
We have
Ogden,
one.
two sides, it's,
Well, that is the only one. And in 2023, I took a picture of these billboards, which were not used for like 10 years. I brought it to a former employee's attention, and within a month or two, the billboards were occupied with signs. So I just didn't know if billboards in general were prohibited in Brookfield, because those were like the only ones that I knew that existed in Brookfield.
I don't believe our current sign code allows for new ones, but I could be
And
wrong.
this is, they're straight up prohibited.
Steve, I can one-up you on that story. Sorry, staff, you'll have to listen. I once took a middle school to that billboard for a drug awareness program, and they forgot to put the sign up, like Red Ribbon Week. And so the sign company came while we were there. They took the one down that was there, and it had a huge beer bottle across the whole thing. And then we erected the Red Ribbon sign right over it. That was great.
That's probably very entertaining for them.
It was really entertaining. So I have a special affinity for those billboards. It's one of the funniest moments of my life.
And then, do we have any time limits on prohibited uses, or are they grandfathered and can stay as those uses indefinitely?
It'd be great if we could get rid of it.
You know, there's many sign ordinances and ordinances in general that say after the approval of this ordinance, you know, property owner has 24 months to remove said non-conforming sign.
I think there's language in the code now that says if it's non-conforming, it can stay until the property owner changes it, and then it has to become conform.
And I know our previous planners have pushed for them to be changed
Yeah, you
anytime
should
something comes forward, though.
To be changed or removed?
Well, like if they've got a pole sign, and they're doing other work on the property, I know, I think it was Emily would push to get them to take down the pole sign.
And put a different type of sign.
But that was
They
just,
want.
that
That was
was
staff.
ask.
Yeah.
That wasn't a requirement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we allow billboards?
No,
No.
prohibited.
So really, it's speaking to one site and one, I'm just,
That's like the only site that I can think of
Just so
that
I know.
we have billboards.
Well, at least it's defined, so now everybody knows they can't put in new ones.
yeah, exactly.
So is it grandfathered in, the one that is left forever?
It was here before I got on this job. You didn't allow billboards. I don't know how it got here. I don't know how it's changing faces. This is not me, so.
You need someone to run a car into it, knock it over. They would be allowed to put it back up.
That's exactly what happened where I used to work. There was a car accident, the billboard was knocked down, and they tried to rebuild it, and we said, sorry, they're illegal, you can't rebuild. And thankfully, it held up in court.
Obviously, we're not proponents of that. We're in public hearings, so just have to make that completely clear.
But if it happened,
This is all anecdotal.
There you go.
I
my
haven't,
story was not.
on page 2-10, I have not seen this referenced anywhere in the zoning ordinance, and if somebody can show me where, I was just wondering why we have standpipe defined in the zoning ordinance on page 2-10.
Because it is something, I think it's in signs or it's in, yeah, it's probably in signs.
Talks
Because,
about fire hoses.
Could
I'm
that
gonna
be a
find it.
type of?
Do.
I mean, this sounds like
it's in
something that
here.
should be in the building code.
There you go. General standards for signs, location restrictions, no sign may be erected in a manner that obstructs access to ingress, egress, fire escapes, fire hydrants, fire department connections, standpipes, it's defined because everybody always asks what one is, and similar fire safety connections. So that's why it's in there. Because people always, this just comes at, what's a standpipe? And so,
You know it well.
All right?
yeah.
That makes
So
sense.
basically, don't put your sign over.
I think that's okay.
Makes sense.
On page 2-20, section N, which goes on page 2-20, 2-21, and 2-22, should that be made part of section 14?
I mean, really, this is where all the different measurements for everything else occur within the code, including, so signs are just yet another way that things are measured, and so that's why it's included with all the other measurement methodologies.
I mean, to me, the zoning ordinance and sign ordinance are two different ordinances. It just seems odd that you would have your measurements in a totally different section when section 14 serves as the sign ordinance itself.
I mean, it's kind of the same reason that all the sign definitions are here in Article 2 as well. So, I mean, it's really just following the structure of the any other measurement methodology would be sitting in there. I mean, if we want to move them, I mean, I'm not opposed, but it's consistent with the way that the rest of the code is structured.
Steve, I do see where you're coming from. If I'm going to install a sign.
Right.
To me, it would make sense that I'm looking at how I measure in the sign portion of, but that same holds true on the other argument too, so I don't know.
But I think in specific to signs, you know, if you're a sign installer in town, you're not gonna look through the rest of the zoning code. You're gonna go to the sign section and that's it. And you're gonna hope that everything you wanna know about installing a sign and enlightening the tenant who wants to put a sign up, you go here and that's it, and you're done. So I would advocate for moving it all into the same sign portion. Yeah, that's how it used to be.
It doesn't, it just assumes like everything else that you would go to the measurement section.
Is it clear in the sign chapter that the definitions are back here in chapter 2?
The definitions or the measurement?
I'm sorry, the measurements.
It doesn't. I can very easily include a cross-reference, or, you know, honestly, because these are so specific to signs, and to the point that sign guys are only looking at the sign chapter, I mean,
You could make it.
I'm not
part
gonna
of-
fight that hard to keep them here in
I
measurement,
think
just
you could
because
take the
signs are
measurement
weird.
section and move it right into the sign section. Leave the sign definitions where they're at with all the rest of the definitions. I think we're okay with it. I'd be okay.
Make it a new section 14.9.
Whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, wherever it fits.
yeah.
Page 2-25. In the illustration here, what is meant by a setback may be equal to or less than a yard?
Hold on. A setback may be equal to or lesser than a yard. The yard is measured from the front of the building to the applicable lot line. The setback is the minimum, as defined here. Sorry, guys, I kind of realize I'm just reading what I'm talking about, but the setback is the required dimension. So say it's 20 feet from the front is your minimum setback. Your yard may be 20 feet. So it can be either your setback in your yard, you're set right at 20 feet and they're equal, or your house is set back 30 feet and it's less than your yard, because your yard is 30 feet, but your required setback is 20 feet.
Okay.
Does that make good sense to architects?
Clear as
I
day to
don't
me.
have an issue with it.
Yeah, I just, You
And
would be a
again,
group that would
I
use
think, you know, staff obviously is starting to realize that, you know, if we're asking these questions, there most likely will be questions ultimately asked of you in the future. So as long as you understand it, again, not that you're gonna be here in longevity, but once it was explained, it's clear to me, so. But will the average homeowner understand that? I'm not sure, and that's what they have staff here for, to help explain.
and I agree with that.
Someone else ask a question now.
All right, are we done with 2?
I'm ready to move
I
to 3.
appreciate it.
All right, it's 20 to 8. Let's see if we can get through 3, at least, if not further.
It's pretty short.
Do we want to do the zoning map? I think there was one question, I think you had a question about a park,
I-
or not?
Few
Steve-
spots.
Steve, you brought it up, but if you want someone
Go
else to
ahead,
ask the
Ryan.
question.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Just on the.
Steve needs a breath.
On the zoning map, as I look at it, and maybe I'm looking at it wrong, when I'm looking at uses, I don't see Madeline Park nor SC Gross Middle School memorialized on this, but perhaps I'm looking wrong.
I need some help here. I need some help here.
You know, we talked about that.
If you'd like to redevelop it into something and find a new school site, the district is always open.
I
That's,
think we talked about should like every school be institutional, or should every park be open space for institutional? Without going into the making of the sausage.
Right.
The ultimate decision was no.
But I think Ryan's saying it's not on,
why?
it's not
It's
on the
not
map.
properly zoned.
So is
not
this-
properly shown on the map.
Is the school going anywhere?
No, well,
No, schools are allowed in institutional and in residential, and parks are allowed in every single
Right.
district. So if a park isn't captured in the OS zone, it's allowed in the district, it's not going anywhere, it's just meant to capture the larger parks. In terms of the schools, if we want to add a school into the institutional, we can, we don't have to, because it is
You've
a
got the-
permitted use within the residential.
But you've got the high school.
I would like
I
to
think
see-
our
In the
point is, every other
institution.
school is an institutional
Yeah.
use is on here,
Except for
except
that
Gross, and every other park is on here except Madeline.
Well,
Yeah.
even just, yeah, I mean, just to the point of how the sausage is made. Madeleine Park, residential, it's in residential, tot lots in residential, marked in one area, but not in another, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I would
this is
definitely
adding
like to
the
see that.
school in the park. Well, the park would be OS and the school would be institutional.
So I mean, if we wanted to get really into it, Madeleine Park actually has split ownership between the school district and the village, through lot lines. So
You might want to stay residential.
you should let staff think about maybe how they want to do that.
forgive me, that's one up there by the middle school?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the middle school, or the district owns the half closest to the school, and then the other half, for some reason, is the village, and you can go back to 1940 probably and figure that out.
And which school was it, did you say?
SC Gross Middle School, right there in the
Oh,
downtown.
yeah.
And that's-
That's yeah, so that's residential, yeah.
That's one of the main reasons I wanted an institutional district, was because we had so many variances come through, just because SE Gross needed to, you know, have a renovation. And it was in a residential
We
district.
changed. Some of it was residential and some of it was commercial before.
Right,
Right?
So I
Right.
think all the
Split.
more reason to show it.
yes.
Does that affect, does this rezoning to institutional affect what SE Gross has laid out?
No, and most stuff goes through Regional Office of Education and not even through the village
Right.
anyhow. Our governance comes differently except for when it comes to stormwater in particular, and potentially walking through, and doing some inspections.
Just
Although,
the-
didn't they rule that there were certain public requirements? Like there were some high schools in Illinois where they were building a new, like, football field.
That was my kid's high school.
You know, and they were putting up bleachers right on the rear lot line of these residential lots, and
One of which was owned by.
the state
county
ruled
safety
that they had to go through the proper zoning hearing for that.
Yeah, I went to the Illinois Supreme Court and the school district lost that the city of Crystal Lake had zoning jurisdiction, but not construction of the actual school, that the football stadium wasn't a primary function of the educational unit.
Yeah.
So does the rezoning affect SE Gross at all?
Well, so I would expand it maybe further, because just to all schools, right? Because instead of just one, I would assume you wouldn't want to leave one out.
Right.
When the others from just a kind of, so like, if you left one out, you would then probably consider leaving all of them out for any restrictions that may or may not come.
It goes to the layman looking at the zoning map and saying, hey, what's there? You know, and if it's institutional, they don't.
I just want to make sure
No,
that
no,
SE Gross
yeah.
isn't
Sure, and.
shortchanged.
Yeah, but that would be then any school, and I think that schools by and large have more leeway to do things, except for in certain instances, which that probably would have come up no matter what,
That's a lot.
based on the people that were opposed to the build. Had the opposition not been as strong or as committed, you probably would have seen those things developed.
The one on the zoning map, I'm trying to figure out what the use is there, east of Village Hall and Kiwanis Park, what are these little blue,
That's the
That's
water.
the water
commission.
plant.
Water Commission?
okay. Thank you.
Do we want to make School District 95 offices on Prairie institutional as well?
No,
That beautifully designed building?
no.
I
Even
think because
I'm-
it's an office.
Even I'm not for that.
I
It's
would
an
say no.
office,
It's an
yeah.
office.
Okay.
Because
What about-
they could sell it and,
Right, to an architect.
to,
A
they could sell
question
it
would
back
be,
to you.
If you did, again, if you, let's say you did make that building, if it sold, you would then have to go through a process of
Right.
changing that, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Depends on the use.
I just wanted.
Depends
to
on the
throw it
use,
out
if
there.
it went
It's
to
an
another
office now.
governmental
Yeah.
body.
Could I ask about the post office property? I assume that's the blue property on Prairie there.
Yes.
Should that be institutional? I mean, we've seen post offices sell their buildings and move out, and then those get redeveloped into housing or into retail. I'm not sure that that should be institutional. I'm not sure that that benefits the town.
So that.
So you're thinking if we changed it, then they wouldn't have to go through a special use necessarily? If someone
I'm-
wanted to
yeah,
tear it
I
down and
think
build something?
if it's part of one of these downtown districts and zoned that way, then if it ever turns over, then there's flexibility with what to do with that property.
I see what you're saying, because it's right in the middle of downtown.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to stay institutional. Government offices are allowed in both the downtown districts, so it would still be allowed to continue. You're not creating a conflict. And rather than have to go through rezoning, make it more attractive for its redevelopment, just to have it be, I would argue, make it the downtown core. And just, it could
Agreed.
stay, it's allowed, it's not,
Make
we're
it
not doing
done.
anything, we're
Done.
just not making it institutional.
Done. Color is
Red
dark
goose.
purple or whatever that color is. Dark red. Mauve.
Thank you.
Yeah, what's the likelihood of a particular building being, redeveloped? Although then you look at St. Barbara's, that was a school, and now it's, what, condos or apartments? I think it's apartments.
I have a question. I'm gonna take it off the map. It's in my list on another article, but the C-2-65. We all know where it is, we all know what it is, we all know what the intent. What was the height restriction previous to what you're suggesting in terms of the 65 feet?
So, I'd have to look it up, because it was previously station area districts, I don't know which one. What we had it proposed at was at 45 feet, and then realizing kind of in this area, this kind of it being by a train station, that perhaps better to go up to 65. What it was in its previous incarnation, or current incarnation as a station area, I am not sure.
All right,
There were
I'm
three
less
different-
concerned about that. I'm less concerned about that. I'm gonna be frank. Is this developer driven? Have you heard developers saying, I want 65 feet so I can get 5 stories?
I have not.
I mean, we can do 5 stories here. I'm perfectly fine with it. It's right by the train station, by a lesser used train station, so I think it would be beneficial to developers. I'm not arguing what it should or shouldn't be. I'm okay with the 65 feet. I was just curious if that came from conversations, because I know there's been lots of conversations with potential developers for this area. And my guess is if it was 45 feet, and I was a developer and I could go up to 5 stories instead of 3 stories, I'd walk away if I couldn't do 5. So I think it's good, as long as everybody understands that that's where we're going with that.
The only thing I'm concerned about with that is that we've got property, it is encompassing property on the south side of Ogden Avenue, not just the north side, which I think would really change the character of the neighborhood behind it.
Right, it would tower over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that it makes sense for the Congress Park area, but I don't think that should extend south of Ogden.
And you don't have a lot of depth,
No.
south of Ogden.
No, so that wouldn't even make sense, really.
And right on east, there's that one open lot where they started to build single-family houses next to the car wash. So
Right.
if they tore the
Yeah.
car wash down
Yeah.
and put a 5-story building there, you're right.
Well,
So-
you're seeing, maybe an example of the future if that were to stay in LaGrange with the Jackson Square
Yep.
site, where you have very close adjacent residential property, and obviously they're the loudest in that, but there is some sense to that. Is there rationale why it carried over from staff? Like, why did it go across Ogden?
Regarding this area, the
The C-
C265?
Yeah, the C265.
So that is the current area that's currently the SA Station Area 3 corridor mixed use. So it's a conversion of that into
Oh, I see.
C2. And then in looking at this area, so basically we took what was all in this station area, everything there that's in that crosshatch, everything was one station area district or another. Those are gone. So we had to put it as something, and initially the thought was C2, and then kind of looking at the area, that there is some significant area there, that it is around a train station that could, afford that type of TOD development to give it a little bit extra height up from the 3 stories that it's currently allowed. Right now, it's currently allowed 3 stories.
Yeah, 'cause this is a hard one, because if we said, okay, south of Ogden, we're gonna change it to say, for argument's sake, say C3. But then you could argue that the little knuckle in the C2-65, there's residential right around that. It's gonna be the same problem.
I was just gonna argue that.
See?
Yeah, I think that those blocks that front on Ogden there without, those lots that front on Ogden with residential directly behind, I feel like that 65 feet could be problematic. So it would essentially be 4 blocks. The 3 south of Ogden, and then that one little one where I think there's a
Is that
currency
Second
exchange.
Street from the west, Dubois?
Yes.
Yes.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Are
Yeah, I
we
have
just-
the same
is-
concerns.
Is the contention just these lots that are fronting on both sides of Ogden?
No, and
Just
the
the south
knuckle
side.
too.
And the knuckle too,
Yeah.
okay. So just to say the knuckle butts up against the R3, and currently the R3 allows heights, up to 45. So you've got a bit more height there for them being a multifamily, because you have multifamily in the R3.
Okay.
So, 45 to 65, it's a couple stories, you may have a little bit bigger bulk there.
I'm sorry, where is the R3? You mean along the tracks?
Along the tracks, because we're
I-
talking
I
about the
think that
knuckle
we're-
too, so.
Sure, I think that we're only talking about the ones along Ogden, unless I'm,
C265.
the C265,
Then also about the residential behind that.
So just that rectangle that's the C265, that's Ogden, both sides of Ogden.
there are 3 blocks south of Ogden and 1 block north of Ogden on the east
block.
side that are the ones that I'm concerned about.
Okay.
Because they all back onto,
Okay.
that
s-
R1.
So here, let's look at it a different way. If the current zoning, and I'm just speculating, it seems to me like the current zoning might be 45 feet, which seems that we've allowed,
Yes,
We have.
Yeah.
for argument's sake. That's what the code is written.
yeah, and that's your
somebody-
other district,
so
your
right
other
now,
commercials, at least
A
minimum
developer could
45.
come into
Sure.
town, build a 4-story building, potentially,
Right,
and if he followed all the rules and regulations, they would never come to see us, they'd never come to see you, right? So if we've allowed that, why don't we try 45, and then if a developer wanted to do a 6-story building, he'd have to come for a special use,
Or planned development?
or a planned
Well-
development.
no, because they would be stuck at 45. I mean, they can't get a special use for more height. I
Okay, they
mean,
can't.
No. So, and if you're at 45, then there's no need
But if
for
a
any
planned
distinction.
development is its own process.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're doing a planned development, that's a
Or-
whole different, if they're coming in to do
Well,
that,
and
they
that's
could
what-
do
and that's what-
100 feet.
And
if
that's
you
what
wanted
staff
to.
would do, right? If somebody came in and said, I wanna do a 6-story building, they'd say, you gotta do a planned development, let's figure it out. So, I'm more comfortable with leaving it at 45,
Yeah,
based
do-
on these arguments.
I'm content having the rest of that district be 65 because it's got the bulk. It's just those ends of the blocks.
I think that's
along
tricky then.
Ogden there. Well,
Because a
would they
developer's
be-
gonna wanna come and buy all that property, right?
Which property?
Yeah.
He
I
could buy
mean,
the whole, he could
on
buy
the
the whole
north side of
triangular piece, for
Ogden.
lack of a better term, right?
sure, but I'm not talking about the
And that
triangular
could be
piece.
65 feet.
Right.
I
Uh,
think she's just talking about.
South of Ogden, and then that one block
I
Right.
think.
that is east of.
And this already has it.
Do we have a zoning map? on
So,
that?
yeah, you're talking about these, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Should be able to go
And that was
back.
done
No, go the other
potentially
direction.
including that.
Okay.
I don't know if we can make it
You
bigger.
already have 4-story buildings on that though.
Yeah, I don't mind the one
Yeah, I don't
on
either.
Burlington.
So you're.
Can I
you're
show
talking
staff
about
what we're talking about?
The 3 blocks on the south side of Ogden and the easternmost block on the north side of Ogden.
Correct.
The
Yeah.
ones that put squiggles in?
Yes.
Let me see.
Yes, exactly those.
Okay, so you're,
Yeah.
Right.
Where would
Because
that,
they all
that's the
back
one.
on, they're
Single
all one lot deep, they all back onto single-family residential R1. The rest, I think you're right, Chuck, I mean, someone's gonna wanna aggregate those properties.
Right.
And I think that that's still possible.
I mean, the
These are
thing, if
all
you buy it, you
across
can
the
still
street
build it
from
45 feet.
Oh, yeah.
that space,
So, yeah, so yeah,
across
this is
Ogden or Du
65.
Bois.
And
Well,
just
can we let
scale
staff
down
come
that
back
way,
to
I
us
mean,
what they think is the
pain in
best
the butt.
solution?
Yeah.
It's a pain in the butt for a developer, but.
So we'll leave that to you to mull over and come back to us and,
So the thought
See
is
what you
of
mean.
this little kind of L on its side shape, whether those should go back down to 45.
That's right.
It's up to you guys. I mean,
Works for me.
Has
I
the
think
village
it's okay.
acquired all of those properties west of Dubois?
No.
not all of them. Many of them, but not all of them.
Oh, you still have Imperial Oak.
Sherwin
I'm not scared
Williams,
of residents either.
and the auto body shop.
65 feet.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Anything else on the zoning map? All right, let's keep going, see if we can get through 3. I have one, I don't know. I have a couple. On page 4.2, in the table, wait, am I past, no, wait.
You went
Sorry,
to-
Yeah,
I
you
jumped
flew
ahead,
right past
sorry.
three. Come on now.
Sorry.
Which is fine.
I don't have anything on 3. Anybody else on, anything else on 3?
I guess I'm just, I'm wondering, the public utilities, the essential services exemption, how do other towns handle that? If they say, well, no, our utilities have to look like a giant tree, you see those all over LA. They have design requirements for utilities.
Where are you
How this-
referring?
I'm sorry, 3-2 essential services exemption.
That would be in your engineering standards or in your subdivision that would tackle this, which isn't part of this, but
Okay.
zoning won't design public utilities. And I don't have a lot of places that have gotten into designing them. It usually depends if somebody's, a desirable place to be, they can extract more from certain folks,
Yeah, I'm not
if they
saying that
want
it's,
to.
yeah.
Yeah, zoning's just basically saying, we're not zoning these essential utilities, the sewer pipes and all that, but obviously you get into engineering standards and it talks about how big the sewer pipe's gotta be. So, so all those types of standards would live elsewhere.
Okay, thank you, that's a good explanation.
And I can add from a public utility standpoint, for example, where we have like Commonwealth Edison structures, majority of those are already established, and because they're established, they fall under an exemption in the International Building Code, that they're completely even exempt from permitting, if it's maintenance type work, which the majority of it can be
Okay.
qualified work.
Thank you.
All right, you wanna try and get through 4 and then call it, or you wanna stop now?
Oh, boy.
4.
Yes, no?
Yes.
All right, let's go. I'll start with the easy ones. 4.2, in the table, 4.1 table, maximum impervious surface coverage, 60, 60, 65%. I guess I don't understand why we have to dictate a maximum, since we already have a maximum building coverage.
So the building coverage is the volume of the roofed structure, so the principal building accessory structures. Impervious surface is the rest of the paving on the site, that whole thing with the gravel walkways and stuff like that, intended to help prevent stormwater runoff onto adjacent properties. So they're controlling two different things. They're-
Understood? But what if I wanted to do a maximum of 80%? Why couldn't I?
This is not a change, though, just to be.
Yeah.
Is it?
We
I'm not
currently
suggesting
have
it
a
is, I'm just
60
asking the question.
Yeah, we currently have a 60%. I think the change was that you went 65 for those smaller.
For the smaller
lots.
lots.
But again,
Yeah.
my question is, why couldn't I go 80 if I wanted to?
Well, I mean, the more you cover, the more runoff you
No.
create.
It's an argument for single family that it's a quality of life. That, you know, what we do now, and it's, I'll say it's confusing.
Okay.
Maximum building coverage.
All right, I get it.
And then minimum green. So
I
we
get
just
it.
said
Oh, it was
40%
a
minimum
flip.
green is
That's
60%
right.
maximum.
Yeah, yeah, all right, I get it. Okay.
I
Um,
forgot we flipped it.
Yeah, we flipped the terms.
All right, I'll keep going, and I'm just gonna make a comment on table 4.1 in general, especially the portion on page 4.3, and I made this clear in my comments to Libby. You know, the table's kind of complicated to read, but I get it, I understand why. It's just a point that I'm making. 4.4, in terms of the residential design standards, there's a little bit of talk in 4.4A about front-loaded attached garages. Again, and we just went through this at our last zoning meeting, there's no mention of, there's no driveways off the street allowed in Brookfield if you can get alley access to your garage. And I don't know if that's memorialized somewhere else in the code, I didn't go through this whole thing, but it should be in here.
So I think it's in the streets division because it talks about the curb cuts, and from what Arista said before, apparently the zoning code is not allowed to cover curb cuts, but it is allowed to cover driveways.
Right.
So it absolutely should be in here,
Either section 42 or 43.
right?
Right, it's in 42, which deals with excavation. Lord knows why it's there. You guys run the board, you guys did it. So
Right.
the village board did it back in 2020.
But again, I think, and Scott, you're relatively new here, but, you know, again, I think it was a little bit of egg on everybody's face at the last meeting in that we got as far as we did, and we said, oh, wait, we can't do that, because if they can get in from the alley, they can't do a curb cut.
Right, if we have that provision, yes or no?
We do have it,
Right, it should be in the zoning.
It should be in the
Right,
zoning
it
code,
can't go in
yeah.
front.
Agreed.
right.
So you do have it.
Yeah, it says
Yes, it's an
excavation.
ordinance we passed,
Excavation.
and I think,
Can we move it?
Arista, the problem is, it was an ordinance that was passed and maybe have never been memorialized in a rewrite of the code. I don't know, it's probably just hanging there. It's an amendment somewhere that obviously got lost in the shuffle. So,
Yeah, if it was in the zoning ordinance, we would have been more aware.
What's the chapter?
It's in 42 currently,
yeah.
42, 477.
4.5, and this is just my architect coming out, you know, in terms of B-7, synthetic stucco, exterior insulation finish system, I see no difference. I don't know why it's listed twice. I'm not a proponent of mirrored glass. Somebody wanted to put 25% of the a prohibited building material, 25% could be mirrored glass. I'm not an opponent of that, but I'm not a proponent of that. But if that's what staff feels like is okay, it's okay. Item J, I would take the US standard 26 gauge out of the steel panel section, because you never know what people are gonna use. And I'm sure there's a lot of manufacturers right now, I know this from my own experience, that are putting, you know, backing behind the panels. They're putting kerfs in the panels to make them stiffer so that they can use a lighter gauge material so they can save money. So I would, but that's, again, so let me get through. All right, a couple more for me. 4.6D, multiple family dwelling. Again, item 3, I think we have to be careful. I understand what it says, that the development must be designed with a consistent building materials, treatments, wraparound, all that. We don't have an aesthetic committee in Brookfield, so who's decides? Just a point. And then item 5, it says, 2 or more of the following forms of building articulation must be incorporated. So if I was a shrewd developer, I would do an inexpensive building that provided all the materials that the code requires, and I would say D says a provision of lighting fixtures being ornamentation, you need 2 or more. I'd put 2 light fixtures on the facade and say, okay, I met your code. I'm sure that's not the intent of this
Yeah,
language.
the intent is you have to pick 2, A, B, C, or D, so you'd have to do D and
That's
C,
not,
D and A.
that's not clear, and even, then I would say 1 light fixture and 1 bay window.
Okay. Yeah, I think I have some additional language on D that can be added.
Maybe say 2 or more of the following items.
It typically,
Must be
I gotta
incorporated.
rephrase that, the intro section. But typically with D, what we've started to do now, this is just kind of for that thing, saying that you can combine it with one or with another, you have to combine it with one of the other ones, but you can only combine it with A or B, you can't do C. So you could do D with A or D with B, but that's it. You can't do D with C.
I'm good with all of that, I'm just,
Okay.
I'm still worried about the 2 or more.
Okay.
Because I think the intent is different than what I'm reading. But I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. That's all I got.
I think the way that you, again, could just alleviate that would be 2 or more of the following items.
And I don't disagree with you, but again, then I'd say 2 small bay windows and 2 light fixtures. And again, I don't think that's the intent. But if that
Yeah,
is.
no, it's not, I can clarify this.
Okay, perfect. I know what you want. You want repetition, you want 10 bay windows or,
Right.
typical light fixtures or typical building materials to be used throughout. So I think if we could clean that up, that'd be great. I'm done with 4. Thank you. Who's next?
So I'll just ask a couple of my questions here. One was, so 4, 3B, 5, and 6, I don't even, essentially, in the past, we've denied petitions for developing existing empty 25-foot lots. Would this traditional lot, would those be allowed to go forward now without a variation? Just because they are already an existing lot?
So
Or-
an existing 25-foot lot would be a non-conforming lot of record, and that's really where that should be discussed. Typically, and I think the way we've structured this is that an existing legal non-conforming lot of record can be developed for what's allowed in the district. So they would be allowed to develop as a single-family home, because they're an existing legal lot. So it's really, can't take away all rights to develop it. So if it's in the single family, basically it could be developed for a single family, because it's existing.
But they would have to meet all the setback
Setback.
requirements.
Yeah, they would have to meet all that.
Impervious
Now when
surface,
you're getting
height,
smaller,
everything.
you're gonna
It's getting
end up
tougher.
coming before you guys, because
Yeah.
it's just not gonna fit.
Because wasn't there a house
I-
built in Hinsdale that was like 10 or 15 feet
yeah.
wide, and it
Wow.
was just a,
I'm sure.
Yeah, there's
And I-
plenty of
Shotgun
25-foot
type
lots in
stuff.
Chicago.
Now that I think about it, that
20
lot,
foot wide
it
houses.
got a lot of
Yeah.
attention about 5 or 6 years ago.
sure, that lot that I'm thinking of that was denied, I'm pretty sure it had other issues besides just the lot width. So, yes, they would have needed a variance for the green space, the impervious, the setbacks. Okay, so I'm comfortable with
Yep.
that then. The front setback averaging, I feel like this is a big change. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think, Chuck, you had a comment on it as well in your notes.
Where is
that,
this?
4-2.
4.3C? Yeah, on page 4.2. Are we comfortable with that being 4 lots? I think you mentioned
Oh,
that
that's
you
right,
had it
yeah.
more than 4 lots.
Current practice is,
Current practice,
block.
we don't do averaging. We have setbacks, don't we? We have measured setbacks.
for some reason, I remember
You,
in the past doing averaging.
We've done that on variances, I feel like.
you've got it the way now, you've got sets, I'm looking at the current code, you've got a front yard, mainly 25 feet when we're looking at the single family, or within 3 feet of existing buildings immediately adjacent, or 3 feet of the average of the front setback of the block.
Okay,
So you
so we
have
must have
averaging now,
changed
it's
that.
just confusing. So what we've said is,
Okay.
let's make it really clear, it's 4 lots, average it out, you know. You're good, you don't have big swaths of vacant land, so you're gonna just match the pattern of your neighbors.
Okay, great.
Yes, I think we did that on a property on Hollywood Avenue or Rosemere a few years ago with the undulating.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And you said we've talked about site triangles later in the code. And we talked about the front-loaded garages. Does anybody else want to jump in while I'm trying to remember what my comments are?
Speak now, or Jennifer's looking.
I have
I,
nothing.
I think that that was all of my comments.
Anybody else? Going once?
Should we make a reference or a specific reference, like under 4.2 on page 4-1, instead of just saying Article 9, say Table 9-1?
I mean, we could. I mean, this really is just the general thing that's telling you to go there for all your use needs. So you may look definitions, you may look for standards, so.
And then we're okay with traditional lots?
I'm good with it. I looked at it many times, thought about it many different ways.
As did I.
I think it's gonna clear up a lot of issues moving forward.
Page 4-4, A3. Does the 10% transparency seem a little low for an architect?
It does, but that's not changed, right?
I can't remember. We've typically kept them at about 10-15% because it's single family
Right.
and that's the most sensitive and we're trying not to be too onerous on these.
I think the current code, like for 91 on Brookfield, whatever it is, SA 6 is 15 currently.
Oh, the current is 15.
I think so.
Oh, I just assumed that because I didn't see it,
I think so. I just looked at that today for something.
I think 15's better.
I do
I do
too.
too.
Okay.
The more fenestration,
Yeah.
the better. I don't like seeing blank walls.
And again, a shrewd developer will say, well, windows are my most expensive element, so I'm gonna just keep it at 10. So if we can do that at 15, that's better.
Sure.
And it would probably be more conforming with.
We'd also repeat that, if that's okay, in the townhouse where we've got it at 10%.
Yes.
Since it's similar, I would change that to 15 for
Absolutely.
consistency.
Agree.
Yeah, that's what I saw today was 10,000.
Is it typical to say front-loaded rather than front-loading?
I've always seen front-loaded, so, front-loaded, side-loaded.
And this
Page
isn't-
4-.
This isn't the place to then also think about putting in the language around, curb cuts, things like that with front-loaded garages.
I think whatever staff decides is the best place to put it.
Sure.
It's
I
gotta
just-
be. in
Yeah,
here.
it's
I
gotta-
just bring it up because
Yeah.
here it is.
Right.
It's gotta work together with the other sections of the code, so I have to talk to staff. There may be something in the parking and the access section that we can add something, but not here. This is just the design. If you have a front-loaded, you're subject to this, is kind of the way to look at this section.
Makes sense.
Front-loaded garages that were in front of the facades, when I first started as a planner, they called them snout houses.
They still do.
Oh, they still do?
Yeah.
I'm glad that we don't allow them.
Right.
In the illustrations of Article 4, can you explain the blank wall limitations? It's just confusing to me where you've got these arrows which indicate a distance, and then in the middle of the arrows, you got C that says blank wall limitations, and to me, that's very confusing as to what is being allowed or not allowed as far as how much blank wall is allowed.
Actually, that is an error. There should not be a blank wall limitation because there isn't a blank wall limitation for single family. It really should be the primary entrance, the facade transparency, and the garage, the front garage placement. So C would come out. Because we don't have a blank wall number like we do when we hit the other districts.
Do you have a different diagram of a house that doesn't show, this one under single-family dwelling, looks like a snout house.
It does.
And we wouldn't allow that. Is there a way to show it,
Yeah, we can change the drawing.
just to change it?
What was the concern?
Hold on, maybe I'm confused. Why are they not allowed?
Because,
For aesthetics.
well, in the code,
The
you don't,
code
you're not
says
allowed.
that somewhere? I missed it.
Yes.
The code said
Front-loaded-
must be located at or behind the front building facade.
Oh, okay.
So you could be even
So it could be
or
even.
behind.
I got it. So you're just talking about it as projected forward.
Yes,
Got it.
I just
Okay.
want I don't
Alright.
want the diagram to give the impression that it's something that is allowed that isn't.
I see. So that.
We could
aligns
change the
there.
house. It's
Thank you.
not a big deal.
Got
So
it.
then, with the blank wall limitation, would that also apply on page 4-6
For the townhouse.
for the townhouse?
So your garage is your primary feature as you look at your house.
Yes. So that
And then
needs to
what
go
about the
to.
multifamily dwelling on 4-7?
No, we've got articulation happening every 40 feet. So I mean, that really is a blank wall limitation, so we could take a look at that. Maybe rephrase it, but you've got a standard in there of 40 feet.
Yeah, because I mean, just having the arrows and then saying this distance between the arrows is a blank wall limitation, it just is confusing.
Other
Yeah,
Article
I
4
got that.
comments.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Chuck really discussed it, but
Right-hand comp plan for the small village, big work and
I'm not too sure about us saying, like, for example, number 7 on page 4-5. The following materials are prohibited. What if more materials in the future are deemed to be prohibited? Are we going to keep amending the zoning ordinance? What if a developer uses a material we thought was obnoxious or glaring, but it's not listed as prohibited? You know, we would have to allow it. Why would we call out prohibited materials? It seems like we should only be listing, you know, allowable materials, because if there is a material in the future that has been invented and used and we find obnoxious, glaring, all of a sudden it's something that needs to be allowed until we amend the zoning ordinance and say now it's prohibited.
I think that the list of materials that are prohibited, though, is gonna be a lot shorter than the list of materials that are
I was
allowed.
just gonna say, it's so extensive, what would be.
But why would we?
But again, this is specific that these materials could be used for up to 25% of the facade.
Right.
So, I think if other materials come into play, and new materials are being invented all the time, I think we have to kind of cross that bridge when we come to it. Many of these materials came from the stationary district design guidelines, if my memory serves me. So, I don't agree with all of them personally, but I could see where, you know, a homeowner or a developer would, you know, could use many of these materials effectively and save some money if they only use it on 25% of their facade.
And these are fairly common. You're
Yeah.
seeing these prohibited building material lists all over the place. The idea of saying what you want usually was always real stucco and brick. And everybody's just like, well, that doesn't really work for me. I want to, you know, there's other materials that are out there. A lot easier to just say, to your point, I don't want these. We know we don't want these. You could just add it to the list if something egregious comes out. Or if you see something egregious. I mean, there's, you know, architects here that can see something coming in the future and say we should just get it on here. You've seen codes used to always have, this is what we want, this is what you can use. You've seen them in recent years all flip this way because it just becomes easier.
Perhaps maybe we could do a little rewording, rather than saying prohibited, maybe the beginning, the following building materials are considered incidental.
Yeah, if that's confusing folks, the
However, you
prohibited
know, that
part,
they
we
could be
can,
used up to
we can revise the
25%.
That's better.
language.
Or
Yep.
maybe limited, something like that?
Yeah, there's ways to rephrase the
Yeah.
language, that's not a big
Because
deal.
I say, you know, when you're saying it's prohibited,
Yes.
but then in the next sentence, you're saying
No,
can
you
be
can do
used up to
25%.
25%.
Right,
Yeah.
yep,
So incidental means
maybe
it's
just change
it's
it to
a
limited.
minor material used.
limited to 25% or something like that.
Or
Yeah.
discourage.
Yeah, we could just rephrase it as,
Yep.
these can only be used for 25% and then just
Got
list
it.
them.
Perfect.
There you go.
All right? You can tell I'm getting tired.
Watch him.
Yeah, we're getting touchy.
All right. Camaros, I know you're getting paid for this, but, you know, I think you don't know us that well yet, but from the two meetings, I think we're taking this as our opportunity to get this as close to correct as we can, realizing that it's, you know, a moving document.
Yeah.
But I commend you, and I'm sure I'm speaking for my fellow commissioners, to your effort, and, you know, we will get this done.
Thank you.
No. I suspect the rest going forward, except for the one big issue, will be easier, so.
And this is our opportunity that we haven't had for decades.
Right.
Oh,
So-
of course, yeah.
For several decades.
Yeah.
This is not out of the ordinary. This is how these processes typically go, so.
Great. So then, as we opened this as a public hearing, I'm gonna have somebody have a motion to continue this till a date to be determined?
It's not a hearing.
Oh, it's not a hearing, that's right.
not a hearing,
Oh,
it's
that's
just a
right.
workshop.
So I don't have to do anything.
You don't have to
Okay.
do any of that.
All right,
But did you want to set another date?
Next Wednesday.
And we don't have to right now, if you want to think about it or look at your calendars.
We do have two commissioners missing. It might be nice to get their input.
yeah, I
And
think,
circulate an email.
yeah, circulate an
we can
email,
talk.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So we got through, what, 4 articles, 5 articles? 4.
Four.
4, great.
17.
Okay, other business, staff? None. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the special meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to discuss the workshop on the public draft of 2.0 of the zoning code at 8:25.
So
So
moved.
Second.
Motion made
You can
by
have it.
Evans.
Evans, second by
Ms. Miller, how's that?
Miller. Commissioner Evans,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Severine,
Aye.
Weber absent, Strega, aye. Weber absent, Grund.
Aye. Thank you all
Motion carries.
for your
Thank you.